Yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Matt. Welcome you back in for part two of our discussion on politics as usual. Breaking down the ballot in the St. Louis area with Chris Carter and Demarco Davidson. In the first half of the show, you got a chance for us to hear us talk about the national scene, talk about the candidates that are on the ballot. Here in part two, we're going to start talking about some of the amendments, some of the propositions, all the different things that are out there from a policy standpoint. So sit back, enjoy, and I hope that you take something away from the rest of today's show.
Jeff wrote and his racist agenda and damage that, man. That's it.
I think that, and although I pose the question to be the devil's advocate and try to call a little bit of a line to it, is that I also think that supporting Kim Gardner also is supporting our own and the treatment of our own in a seat, and that is important, regardless of the seat. And I don't think Kim Gardner has given too many. I mean, obviously it's inherent in the job. Kim Gardner hasn't given any particular reasons why we shouldn't support her in what she does. So it's important to support our own in the seat. I think that goes to a lot of things here. Real quick before we turn the corner into this, I lied. There are a couple of more individual seats. One in particular, I definitely want to get some response in here, but I'm gonna skip that. But if you've been in any organization in your life, you know what a treasurer does. So you understand what that handling is gonna look like. But with this attorney general, I'm gonna read because we all had this question about who is this guy. Rich Finneran, his three priorities for Missouri. Again, this is courtesy of vote411.org. His first priority is protecting health care, including coverage for pre-existing conditions. His second is criminal justice. He promises to address the inequities of our system head on and ensure the law is enforced fairly for all. And third, he promises to take on corruption to make sure that the AG's office benefits the people, not politicians or the well-connected. So, in other words, it's the Democratic space filler.
They got that playbook. That's the basic stuff, man. But it sounds like, I ain't gonna say that.
I mean, it's like we talked about last time. The Republicans got abortion, gun rights, and Democrats got reform, and yeah, man. So yeah,
it is what it
healthcare. Yeah, this was healthcare. Oh, okay.
So the next one I want to pull up here, and this is one that's going to be different based on where you live, but the principles of it are going to be the same. And I'm just going to hand this off and get out the way. State representative. When I'm voting for a state representative, what exactly am I doing in that moment?
Well, I mean, hopefully this person has been to your door multiple times. And Marco will tell you, and I can personally say, one thing that people cannot say is that they never met me when I was state and representative, because I came to your door and asked you for your vote and followed up about 20 times, me, Marco, and about 15 other folks. And so in that time, you would have gotten to know what I feel about anything that you were asking, just in terms of issues in our community, in our state, and things that you wanted me to go and fight for, or things that I personally wanted to fight for myself, or what I thought that the job entailed before I actually got there. And so I think that it's the same thing. I think that, I think that right now you gotta have, you gotta have representation that's fighting for what you believe in. And I mean fighting, I don't mean just advocating. I mean really fighting legislatively, budgetarily, and, really trying to create change. Because I can say I'm fighting hard right now. I'm not fighting, but show me some legislation. Show me some legislation that you filed or that you plan on filing. Let's talk about policies that you want to change specifically in our state. Or show me some line item budgets that you want to fill to give us better programming or access to something. And that's something that I think that people should be looking for. I'm not going to tell you to go and support whoever. Just look at what they look at what they are fighting for. But at this point, you're probably too late if you're just now trying to figure out what should, because that should have been something that folks were really checking into in August. You know what I'm saying? Now you stuck with whoever your district been voted in. That's who you stuck with. So hopefully that person is somebody that you like and somebody that you have access to. I think right now it's going to be tough for any Democratic candidate to go up there and make a major impact. It's only a slight few that has done it these past few sessions, and it's only a few that's going to do it. This shout out to Rachel Prouty. I know that she kicking butt. Rasheen. I'm really happy, and I don't know. It's gonna sound weird. I'm excited to see what Marlon Anderson is gonna do. Newt, and he ran against my dad, beat him, and a few other folks. I'm Steve Webb's wife, Shalonda. It's interesting to see what's gonna happen when they get up there, because they are a exciting group. Well, I mean, Rachel is already there, but like anything, we need them to continue to fight for us, and I think that Corey will also play a major role in helping get things done budgetarily, hopefully with them too, and legislatively. I remember that Clay had a point where he could have impacted things legislatively. He chose not to. He chose not to. I remember budgetarily, a phone call from Clay to Jay Nixon would have helped us out at a point. It didn't happen. So Corey is definitely going to play a major role in this, just in terms of leadership and assisting, like Marco said. So sorry, I went on a little rant.
No, being an advocate, that matters. That's what you are.
Right.
You're there to be an official capacity advocate.
And you're a former state rep, so
yeah, I mean, you know it. It's it would be like if we were having a thing saying we're nominating somebody to be a Kappa from Mizzou. All right, let's talk about what that looks like. I'm ready to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. What does it mean to get a sociology degree? It means you got to really be good at something else. Like that's what that means. I'm here to talk about that. All right, so a couple of other positions I'm going to get by. Circuit attorney, that's Kim Gardner. We just touched on that, what that looks like. One of the other ones that this is one of the ones that stumped me about why I was voting on it. And I think we're kind of getting to that point where we kind of talk about some of the things that we're looking at and we're discussing it, and maybe some things that are kind of disadvantageous as a voter. In the city of St. Louis, I'm on the city ballot.
Sure.
St. Louis sheriff. I got a couple of questions I'm just going to put out here that might not be able to be answered. I'm just going to put them out because this is me as a voter, what I was wondering. Number one, who are these people? Number two, where does this fall in the hierarchy of how law is enforced? Number three, who are these people? Number four, what does it really mean for you to be a part of a political party for me voting for you as sheriff? What are we doing here? And then finally, number five, who in the hell are these people? I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know what we're doing here.
it don't mean the same in St. Louis City. Like if you was someplace else about a police chief,
in Boone County and you a sheriff, you the man.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe that.
But now with this, not here in this city, now with the police union we got, like, I don't understand that part. I'm still, and people was running hard for it. People was running hard for sheriff.
What's the paycheck attached to it?
It's I think it's 100. It's
That's
100.
That's what they're running for.
It's 100 plus benefits. It's 100 plus benefits. I mean, you basically.
That's one of those things where people say an elected official. I say, yeah, but like you're an elected official, but it goes into that danger of looking at a ballot and being like, what am I voting for? Because you're an elected official just because they decided to put your job on the ballot.
I think that I think that right now, the way that crime is looking in St. Louis City, I think that the sheriffs should be trained to have a assistant type role to assist the police. I'm not saying that they should be patrolling our streets, locking people up. I think that there should be a role for them to help tackle our crime situation in the city.
So when you say defund the police, the idea behind that, whether I'm not here to talk about the, correction, you didn't say defund the police. I'm saying that when you hear people say defund the police, how does saying that and wanting to see that carried through and the idea of reallocating funds and reallocating budget and things around law enforcement, how does that impact sheriff's office?
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
I probably should know this, but I don't. I mean,
and that's the thing, and the reason why. And here's the and that's a little bit of a catch-22 question. Why I ask it: if we have somebody who's run for state rep and somebody who's been a state rep and an alderman that says that's a good question. What's going on with how we're policing right now? Now, that's not to say that like you all are the end-all be-all encyclopedic knowledge of what the law system, legal system is in the state of Missouri, but that should be something we should know if we're out right now and we're saying we have an issue with how funding is going towards police and it needs to be allocated differently. And I'm voting for a sheriff, I want to know where he stands on that, but I don't.
I mean, I know their money is allocated differently. And I know that the sheriffs preside mainly over the jails and the courts.
Yeah, like when you get a warrant, are they the ones that come looking like
they come and serve? Yeah, they
yeah.
come serve you anytime they're where prisoners are transported. They are the ones that are doing the transporting. And when you go to court, sheriffs basically they preside in certain, in those courts.
All rise.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean,
why is it a party thing? Like, why is it political? Like that's I'm confused.
I don't know. It's been like that for years.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things because it's been like that, and that's
right.
Like, the more you look at a ballot, the more you realize that. All right, keeping our power hour going. Treasurer, we have Tashara Jones and we have Robert Gorman up for that. So Treasurer, what are we looking at there? I know this for a fact. This is a personal confession here. I wish that I had any sort of relationship with Tashara Jones because I've given a lot of money to her office for past transgressions. So I'm very familiar with when the treasurer comes into your life and when that's something that they're the things that they preside over. When you're voting for that, what does that mean?
I think that Tashara is somebody who has earned our vote. And then I know people looking at this are going to say that I am biased. And that may be the case. Tashara.
Yeah, so I got a question for you, Chris. I got a question. Like, can you break down how the treasurer position in St. Louis City is actually still connected to the state? Because that still throws me off. Like, because she don't really have to answer to the mayor, does she?
She answers to. So she's no. She is.
Yeah, break that down for me, dude.
So her budget is allocated through the city, which is weird. So her budget is technically governed by the city, but it's a whole weird setup with that. But law-wise, she's regulated by the state. So, like, the mayor can't obligate her to do something. Like, I think this past year we've seen, like, a Jeffrey Boyd had a bill that was taking some money out of her budget. Something happened, and then there was a lawsuit. So he had to sue to figure out if it was even possible, if him as alderman, if he could take money out of her budget to put towards something else that the city needed. So I mean, I don't know the exact legal ramifications of how she's regulated, but I know it ain't locally, and I know that anytime that she is touched, you basically have to sue to to try to make things happen with that. But I think that Tashara has been the best treasurer that our city has seen. Before her, we had Larry Williams, who was there, who was a great guy, employed everybody, uncle, mama, grandma, a cousin. I even worked for him when I was in high school. He was cold. But I think Tashara has did everything that she said that she was going to do in that office. She has even to the point where I remember where we were fighting to raise the minimum wage. And at that point, she was the first citywide to say, you know what, I'm gonna make everybody in my office that the minimum pay is going to be $15 an hour. When we were fighting for it. When I was an alderman, I carried a piece of legislation for her where she had created a savings account, a college savings account for every kid in St. Louis City that went to a public school.
And 529 college savings plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and she opened that up for them and would start that off with, I think, I can't remember, which is sad because I sponsored the bill and carried it through the board of aldermen. But I mean, she was giving a portion towards that to make sure that kids and parents understood how important that it was for them to start saving for college or for education, period. And so, yeah, man, I'm a huge supporter of Tashara. I think that, she's gonna continue to be great in our city.
One thing I like about oh yeah, right. One thing I like about and I appreciate about Tashara is that she showed what type of power whatever position you have, what type of power you can actually do, and how creative you can be in developing solutions for your community. I've never thought about I never thought about a treasurer
with your seat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be creative, be powerful with your seat. I never thought about a college savings plan from a city treasurer, but exactly. It's dope.
So when you talk about power in the seat, that brings me to and we talk about complicated things on the ballot. I want to talk about the judges that appear on the ballot.
Yes, the judges.
And just how it's a part, I think it's maybe the most debated part and the least, I should say, understood element of, number one, why we're voting for this, and number two, who we're voting for, and then I think most importantly, number three, how it all works in the first place anyway. So I'm going to cede the floor to you gentlemen, absolutely, because you have an understanding of this that was different. I will come back in on the end to kind of talk about how I tried to figure it out for myself, but where are we at with this and what does that mean exactly?
Marco, it's all you.
All right. So going all the way back to whenever you start learning about civics, the three branches of government: executive, legislation, judicial. That's on the state level too. Executive is the governor, and the lieutenant governor. The legislative was the state reps, the state senators, and now, or even the city, in a city level too. The alderman would be an example of a legislative branch on the city level. In St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and Jackson County, which is Kansas City, we have what we call the Missouri Plan. Now, I don't know why it's the Missouri Plan, because it's really just those three main counties that go along with this. So that's a whole nother conversation. But the concept, when you look at your ballot, you'll see whether to retain or not retain, which means that these judges who were appointed by whichever governor was in office at the time they got appointed, which means that there actually are people who were appointed by Greitens, and there are some people who were appointed by Parsons. There are some people who are appointed by Nixon that's currently serve as judges in St. Louis City.
That were appointed by Moynihan.
Right. And so so the way they have it now is it's it's not every 2 years, it's every 4 years, or it's alternate too, because it's not all of them. But yeah, so long story short, if we think that this judge it should continue to be a judge, then we should vote to retain that judge. If you don't think that judge has been doing what that judge should do, you should not retain them. And this is the way. And so if there is somebody who we do not retain, the governor will then appoint a new judge, and they will take on whatever the responsibilities, or the responsibilities may get shifted within the judicial group of judges. And it is different. It is interesting. And one of the main questions. First off, let me rewind. Majority of us do not interact with judges unless you had something terrible bad going on, or unless you actually involved in jury duty, perhaps, or you actually know judges because you're an attorney. And you know, a good attorney knows the law. A great attorney knows the judges. That's what I've been told. So therefore, your MissouriJudges.com, I believe that is the website. I'll double check. Is a website that gets peer evaluations from different judges, from different attorneys, from people involved in the justice system, and they say, "Yep, this judge is overall fair." And then we get into the whole concept of what does fair mean. Not only that, we should, if you do ever have a conversation with a judge, if you meet them out, sometimes they just look like regular people. You won't even recognize them unless they tell you, "Yeah, I'm a judge in this court." Like, they won't tell you. You should ask them their judicial philosophy, and meaning when they consider laws, they're like, "Oh, well, it's the law, and the law says I'm supposed to penalize you to this extent, so that's what I'm going to do." Or does a judge say, "Hey, I know this is the law, but I'm also recognizing your humanity, and I recognize that this is all the things you've been dealing with. So I could do this, but I'm not going to penalize you as much, but I'm also going to divert you to a different program instead of just throwing the book at you."
It's one thing I want to slide in there real quick. When you hear people say, if you've ever heard the saying before, "to the furthest extent of the law has degrees. The law is a sliding scale in many cases. Now, there is a guilty and there's a not guilty. That's a definition line, but there is a sliding scale for the execution ability of the judge. I just want to put that.
Yeah, exactly. No, excellent point. And when I say the judges are extremely important, because it's used. So, and we talk about even usually the judges that end up getting appointed to be federal judges normally have already experienced and have it's like going from college to the pros. Like you get some experience first. Now with our current president, he just nominated somebody who literally only been out of law school for 2 years to be a federal judge. So,
well, all right. So when you talk about the judge appointments, though, I think that's a piece of news that came out that here's one of the disservices of the all right, fuck it. So here's some of the disservices and some of the treachery of the Trump administration and the people that have served underneath him is that there are so many things that happen that aren't right, that have flown underneath the radar. And one of them has been the degree and the types and caliber of people who have been appointed as judges, and also to the terms, some of which being lifetime terms, that some of these people that make these abilities aren't in place. This is what it's called when you hear people say institutional. I want you to really understand that judge appointments and how this system works is truly an institutional fabric. We have a thing that is really ingrained into on these ballots for whether we retain or we don't retain, that is an element to impact, I'm going to put an asterisk next to that, impact the institutional weave of what impacts us in these courts. Now, the challenge with that being is that you have these different people in, and on a very surface level, you could say, a politician I didn't agree with appointed this person, so I'm not going to support this person. Mm-hmm. However, and Chris, as I listen to you talk more about the process and about how there's give and take, how there's things that are discussed between both sides of the aisle, is that sometimes it's not that cut and dry either. There are people that are appointed to certain areas who maybe don't politically line up with some of these people, but it makes sense to appoint that person. So that's why I say it's a little bit deeper. And Polo, when you talk about going into My Missouri Judges and looking at the results that come back from that, is that there's another tool that you can use to aid that to learn more about their background too. And that's also something that's called Ballotpedia, where you can look at all of your elected officials and get back to the roots of their background. Essentially, it's Wikipedia for politicians. And you look at their background, you can look underneath that, compare that with their My Missouri judges, and you can learn about as much as you can without having that chance encounter to ask them about their judicial position. So,
Yeah, exactly. And
but it shouldn't be that damn complicated. Basically, you have to go out and do all of the work that happens when you see these debates and these commercials to find out about. Imagine if you had to find out about, do that much work to find out about who you were voting president, because they didn't, they were never on TV or anything. And and this is my last point I'm making. I promise I'll give it back. The only difference being is that that person that you have to go out and do that research for, you could literally find yourself standing before for the wrong ticket or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The stakes are crazy high, and we have no knowledge about how we're influenced.
Exactly, and so a lot of people, different organizations are starting to do things like Court Watch. Like they actually are going in and keeping track of the statistics, and then present that data or the information to where, nope, this person, for example, the Bail Project here in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, they provide information like, hey, this judge, while this judge might be black, this judge also, like you said, to the furthest extent of the law, this judge ends up giving them the harshest punishments for black and brown people. And again, I'm encouraging people, read the book or listen to the audio of Locking Up Our Own, because there is that element of, yes, we are great. We got black judges, but somehow, some way, sometimes they end up being the most harsh penalizers. Somebody told me like some black judges, not all of them, some of them are like those black professors at a HBCU. Like I want to see you do so well. I'm gonna be so hard on you. Like I don't need you to be hard on me right now. Like I need justice. But judges decide on what justice looks like. That's my takeaway. That's why it's important to know who the judges are, and that's why I connect with different organizers, different community people, different people who do Court Watch, and create a little spreadsheet and say, hey, is this person for us, not for us? And when we talk about what is fair,
put that out, man. Put that spreadsheet out.
Oh yeah, I'll share it with you. Real talk, because people do ask. I'm like, yeah. I let people know like these are opinions from multiple people, not just the attorneys, not just the other peers.
But crowdsourcing, that's important.
Yes, yeah. And I wouldn't be able to do that again. That's, again, I can get that information from different places and different people. And I actually held a meet and greet with St. Louis City judges, and the people that people informed me on, yep, you should vote no, or yes, you definitely should retain this person. It reconfirmed that, but one great thing that happened, and I'll share that link as well. It also like humanized them, and when I heard how the judges wrestled with, okay, I understand the law, but I also understand what's going on with this person, and how do I do that? How do I still maintain this person's humanity by also making a judgment on what happens to their life? Yeah, and that's a lot. That's a heavy weight.
That's a lot to carry. And we've actually got a brother that's from Delta Omega who's a judge in the city, and Mike Walton. And when I use Mike as an example, I haven't talked to Mike about any of these judges or anything about that. Our conversations are just friendly. But when I think about that, and I think about just saying just vote no matter what, I think about the fact that I wouldn't vote no on Mike as a judge. I know where he's coming from. I know what he's about. I know who he is as a person, but I only know that because I know him. You know what I mean? Like there's no other way to find that out for the regular person. And I think that that's a flaw in the system, that we have to have these grassroots efforts and we have to have all these things. But it's the biggest piece of the ballot in a lot of cases. It's the biggest piece of the ballot, at least by the most numerous parts of it. And people are voting no out of a understandable disdain for the law in some cases, but also voting yes or no just for the fact of the matter, saying that whatever, I don't know any different.
Right.
One of the things that was most surprising to me from yesterday's meet and greet was going back to Parsons, who actually either passed the bill that was anti-LGBTQIA plus, like it was not in favor for that community, but then he appoints an openly gay white judge. who is progressive. I was like, you got appointed by Parsons? Like, I wanted to ask so many more questions.
Who was it? Mike Colonna?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and that's politics. You gotta understand that Colonna. So we served with Parsons. So Colonna, Colonna has a relationship with Parsons, just like I do. And so Parsons, man, I mean, I hate to speak in favor of him on here, but believe it or not, Parsons is not. I think it's the same like any Democratic candidate you have. You got to fall in place with, you know what I'm saying? You got to fall in lockstep at points. Well, you don't have to, but certain people do. And I think that personally, he just chose to fall in place. But I mean, in the past, he didn't show what he's supporting now. So.
Who, Parsons?
Yeah.
That's the second. You know what? You're not the first person I've heard say that.
Like, he actually ain't a bad dude. Yeah. Like,
has worked in the room with him. I don't know him personally, but so that's kind of and again, later on in the show, we will share the information about the event that Demarco put on, because it was a really great event. I mean, and I don't think that there's be any other way that you could learn more about it. So for people that still are yet to vote and still have more to go, we will have an avenue for you to be able to hear from these people and to get a chance to know them on a level that you wouldn't have known any other way. All right, let's talk about some propositions real quick. And this is these are tricky. These are the things where you really need to have a magnifying glass to understand what's going on here. Yeah. So the first one I want to put out is proposition.
And remember, the Secretary of State decides the language. So the Secretary of State is trying to make tricky language.
Yes, exactly. Very, very good point. So I'm going to put out Proposition R. I'm going to read the ballot wording, and then I'm going to leave it on the floor for us to talk about, what we really have going on here. So this is St. Louis Proposition R. Shall the city of St. Louis levy an additional tax of 6 cents per each $100 of assessed valuation as authorized by a section of another bill somewhere else for additional funding of community children's services, in particular, early childhood services for children aged 5 or younger, in addition to the current levy of 19 cents per each $100 of assessed valuation. That is painful to read, let alone to try to understand if you're not aware of what valuation means and what cents per initial already in place looks like.
All right, you need a master's degree to understand this stuff, man.
And that is true, actually.
Yeah, but now this is something that's good, proper. I support it wholly. I watched Shameen. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Shameen Hubbard as she presented this bill and got it passed. This is something that's going to create, I think, around $2.3 million for early childhood centers, programs, and education. I guess in a sense, and this is something that I think that that's needed right now. I think this is that these are the type of programs that will impact homes and our community directly. This is something that we can see visually happen. So I'm gonna say yes. I haven't heard if anybody was against this.
So I guess. So for these, and I'm sorry, I should have said this before we got into this. I do want to read the critic line as well, so
okay,
that it's an opportunity to speak to that too. So the critic line for this says is that that the bill would only serve nonprofit social services and will not allow for tuition subsidies for families or wage increases for child care workers.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything wrong with that. It will basically put money for child services to those nonprofits that basically been footing the bill on their own on a lot of stuff. That will hopefully get them to do more in the communities and for the people that they serve. So okay. I think 2.3 million is a good amount. It is a good start. Hopefully that will grow, and hopefully we have some great organizations that will receive this money and will do great things with it.
Okay, moving into the next one we've got here, St. Louis Proposition 1. Again, ballot wording, and then we'll talk about what it's really saying, and then give the pro and negative stance on it. Shall Section 2 of Article 8 of the City of St. Louis Charter, which requires all officers and employees of the City of St. Louis to reside within the city's boundaries, be amended to permit the employees of the City of St. Louis, except for city agency and department directors appointed by the mayor, to reside outside of the city's boundaries.
So basically, this is the main thing about this one is, do we want police who live outside of St. Louis City actually policing within St. Louis City? Is that the bill? Yeah.
Yes.
What? Say it again.
So right now, in order to be a police officer in St. Louis City, you have to live in St. Louis City. They're asking, are you okay with police officers who do not live in St. Louis City to come and police?
Yeah, but they can move out. They can move out after 7 years.
Yeah.
I think that law has changed. That was one of my first votes. I got in trouble for that vote. Got cursed out for that. I remember that.
And why is this so? Why do you feel it's so like confrontational? Why do you feel like you got cursed out, Chris?
Well, wait, Chris. Before you answer that, I wanted to give the opponent's stance to that. So yeah, obviously, supporters say that this could help the city attract more people to fill the hundreds of vacancies that are in city government. However, opponents of it say the residency requirement makes it more likely that city employees will know the areas that they serve. Opponents also argue that the city personnel department should do a better job of recruiting city residents for available jobs. So taking that second part out, I think it really breaks down to, people saying that it's better to have people that are, let's break down to what this really is talking about. This is talking about the police force, okay? That has been one of the main things that has been said by the commissioner, John Hayden, is that, it's hard to staff the police force right now. That's why you have some of the issues that are in play with
police chief, safety director, mayor.
Yes, all of that. So the issue being is that saying that it's better to have people who know the community within the community to keep from there being issues from people coming in that aren't parts of the community. And it's something you hear about, a critique about policing and about officials that are making decisions for a given area in a lot of different places. So I'll leave that there, and Chris, I'll leave you to what what your thoughts were on that.
I'm gonna say this. I mean, there was a point where I thought that, I still think that it's almost better to have police and firefighters living in the communities that they serve. Now, other employees, I don't know.
It's like city hall workers, like city hall clerks.
Like, that's why. I mean, it really don't matter. I think it would open us up to more options, just in terms of a better workforce. It will make us more competitive, I guess, with the choices that we can get. I'm not saying that it's not enough smart people in the city. I'm just saying it'll just open it up for.
It gives you a bigger pool to pull from.
A bigger pool to pull from. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, man. Yeah, man. A bigger pool to pull from. But as far as the police go, and are we sure that this has to deal with police? I don't think it does. Right?
I could be wrong.
It's not strictly to that. I will say that's an add-in that I look at, and it's one thing I've heard be discussed about it, saying that it's harder for them to recruit because people don't want to live in the city of St. Louis now.
It's harder for them to recruit because they can't compete with the pay that the surrounding. I mean, look, it's simple. If I'm gonna make 10, 15,000 more in the county or in Clayton or in Wentzville or in St. Charles to be an officer, I'm not coming to St. Louis City. And you got to do more work as an officer in the city. Let's just keep it real. You got to do more work as an officer in the city. So why would I'm gonna go there and make less? No, that's not the. I think that's not the problem. The problem is not is not that. And my wife, she just interviewed Heather Taylor, Officer Heather Taylor, Detective Sergeant Heather Taylor,
Right.
and Heather Taylor spoke on that, why African Americans or why people were being. How come we didn't have African Americans graduating from these classes or even getting in? And it's because they turning them down for minute reasons that have nothing to do with nothing. So, but that's a whole other topic. But yeah, I don't think that's a reason why.
Yeah, so to a certain degree, it does for me go back a little bit to what we talked about earlier, local control, like actually having people locally and hiring people locally. But I'm agreeing with Chris and his wife and Sergeant Heather Taylor that they definitely make it more challenging for local people to get elected. But I think I'm still a little conflicted overall. I think majority of people I'm in communication with, they don't want it. But at the same time, if you have somebody from the South Side policing the North Side, like to me, that's still outside my neighborhood.
That's a different world still.
Yeah.
It's a different world to me. Like, but it's St. Louis City, So I'm like, I don't know.
I live in St. Louis City, and I live at the intersection of Oakland and McCausland. That's a lot different than living on the North Side,
right?
Or driving deep into the South, like on the state streets and things like that. These are very different things. And I think that the limitations of the viewpoint is a challenge for a city with the complexities and the boroughs of all intents and purposes that St. Louis has.
Yeah.
But I also think that the people that say, I don't want somebody, when you look at the fear-based shootings that are so prevalent and drive a lot of the things that we really are against right now, when you look at those people and you look at the things that have happened, I would guarantee that a lot of them have been perpetuated by somebody who had no other experience in those neighborhoods other than going to work. So that's the risk. And when I look at let's be honest about St. Louis.
Yes.
When I look at the pitfalls of St. Louis and I look at what it means to come into St. Louis, one of the biggest problems with the city is that half of it's scared of the other half of it. So do we want people leaving from that one part to come in and do that? I don't know. I think this is one of the most difficult measures that's on any ballot that people are saying right now, because it's a tough call.
And then what you may open it up to, man, and I ain't even think of this. You may have guys from other part of the state, and I don't. This is probably a little harsh when I say this. You're gonna have guys from Missouri coming down to hunt. You know what I'm saying? Or
that's real.
That's real. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I've kept my vote out of most of this, but I voted against this. I did. I don't think. I think that
I may be voting with you on that.
Yeah. So, another proposition we got here, we can hit this one really quick, but it's a fascinating one. Proposition D. So, shall the city of St. Louis adopt an ordinance to establish an open, nonpartisan system for elections to the offices of mayor, comptroller, president of the board of aldermen, and aldermen, enable voters to choose all the candidates they wish in an open, nonpartisan primary, and allow the top two candidates to then compete for a runoff in the general election?
What y'all think of this? I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. This sounds awesome, don't it?
Yeah.
It's not though. Yeah, I think it would have been when Tashara and Lyda ran. I think this would have been great. We would have won. Like Tashara would have won. She would be mayor now. If this was in then, she would win. She would be in. But where else are they doing this? Do y'all know?
Yeah, no, actually I do know. So right. So I'm encouraged. I would encourage people. I don't live in St. Louis City, but I would encourage people to vote on it. I would vote yes for it. I would encourage because Tashara's running for mayor.
But listen.
Tashara's running for mayor next year.
Look, no. Hold on. I will encourage people not to vote for this because look, it's too many what ifs. Like,
so it's approval voting. That's what if y'all never heard of it, it's approval voting. Look it up.
Look. We can't afford this in the city. We can't afford to have this extra election, this extra runoff.
No, it's still a primary and a general.
Will it do that? So hold on.
Yeah.
Case in point. So case in point. No disrespect to anybody that I name on there.
They'll be okay.
So
Yeah.
let's say me, Chris Carter, I got to run against Jimmy Matthews and Bill Haas. And those are guys that always run. They always run.
They always run. You right.
I get 98% of the vote, right? But
No, you win.
No,
you win. That's
How?
approval voting. You just said 98% of the vote. Like that's it's it.
Well, no,
yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. So look, I take that back then. Under this, Tashara would have still lost then, right? I guess I read this wrong. So Tashara would have still lost because she didn't get the
so let me break it down. I'll break it down.
Break
for
it down
you.
for me because I don't know.
It's new, right? So this is new for St. Louis City, St. Louis County, for Missouri. We would like, and let me also include the fact that our voting machines, our voting machines actually can deal with approval voting, but we just don't, right? Other cities.
I want you to answer one more thing for me too.
Go ahead.
Break it down. How come it's only for mayor, president of the board of aldermen, aldermen, and comptroller? How come we ain't doing this for everything, for everybody?
Right. That's a great question. So that part I'm not sure of, but it's citywide elections. Now, what I am concerned about, I'm going to say what I'm concerned about. Let me say that part first. Because if there becomes like a major, an overall major group of people, a major overall group of people that is voting like for, and they keep showing up like a major group, like it will like continue to go that direction. But approval voting is instead of me voting for one person. So let's use the mayoral election for St. Louis City that happened where Tashara lost by 888 votes to Lyda Cruzen, right? Those are the top two, correct? Approval voting says instead of just voting for one person, you can vote for however many people you approve of to hold that position, to hold that job.
No.
Now, hold on, let me finish. So,
no.
If you approve, so last week we talked about Antonio French, right? If you, Chris, approve of, like I approve of Tashara holding that position and Antonio holding that position, right? I don't approve of Jeffrey Boyd holding the position. I'm not gonna vote for him. So what happens is that you can choose, and whoever had whatever. If I have to look at the language, but if there is somebody who doesn't have the majority, let's talk about that for a quick second, real quick.
I'm confused already, Matt. You confused too.
Let me help out real quick so we can bring it to the middle here. I'm gonna give the summary version. So voters could vote for any or all candidates they approve and then would vote for one in the general election. The change would go into effect for the March and April 2021 election. Supporters complain that some city officials have been elected with less than 40% of the primary vote under the current system. They add that under the proposition, some office holders would be elected with broader citywide support. I feel like we've kind of covered both of those angles here so far.
Yeah.
They also point out that nonpartisan city elections are held in all other Missouri municipalities and 80% of municipalities nationwide. Opponents say that political parties would be hurt and lose their candidate's party identity, and that the ward committee system would be weakened. They also say that residents would be confused by the proposed change.
Yeah.
I feel like we've hit every possible corner
Everyone
so far. However, I do know that this is how they do it in Kansas City right now. I've talked to some people that are in Kansas City about the way they do this, and they say that it's led to a much, much more representative vote for the people that they put forward. And I think that it played a big part in how Sly James has become mayor in Kansas City in that time, which I would see as being a parallel to what the Tashara's outcome should have been in the last election and could be going ahead. So I keep saying I'm not going to do this. I voted for this because I don't see a purpose for political parties to be inherent in our mayoral vote. I think it just gets in the way and limits the amount of people who we really want to have there, especially with the way that the districts are.
Yeah. And also, I want to, again, the last president board of alderman race, more people didn't vote than people who actually did vote. So it's a minority of people voting on a citywide election, and that person automatically wins. And Reed won, and like it was it was ridiculous. Like, so people are winning citywide elections with a minority of voters, all because they had the majority of the minority.
To me, I see this, and this did
forever.
Well, and this did reach the ballot.
And look how St. Louis is forever. Like that's what we saying. Like, yeah.
Well, and that's a good point when you talk about it's been like that forever, because you're right. You're 100% right about that. This reached the ballot by petition. So this reached there by popular recall. Because I think that a lot of this happened in anger about the way that the last mayoral vote happened, and I absolutely think that the alderman vote weighed in on it too. It was too many things that happened in sequence because that issue. So this was a response.
And I do know that Cori Bush, Rasheen Aldrich, and several others are supporting it. So, you know, it is different for St. Louis. It's different.
I know that Alderman John Muhammad is, and he made some great points on this.
I respect
that. That sounds like somebody we need to have on at some point.
Definitely.
Let's make it happen. All right, we're gonna get to the last two things we got here tonight. This one's running long, but I think this is the type of meat that's on the bone that needs to be talked about, needs to be fleshed out.
I'm gonna split up into two parts though, fellas, just for y'all to know, FYI, so y'all ain't
okay. Cool.
Okay.
So the next thing I want to hit here is Constitutional Amendment 1. So I'm going to put the wording out and then just get to what we're looking at, what it means. So Amendment 1 asks this question: do you want to amend the Missouri Constitution to extend the two-term restriction that currently applies to the governor and treasurer, to the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, and the attorney general? State and local governmental entities estimate no cost or savings from this proposal.
So basically, you only run 2 terms in these, like, so there are some positions where you can only run 2 terms and you turned out, while others run as many as you want.
So to build on it, you know, the state constitution now limits only the governor and the treasurer to 2 terms. Supporters of this say that term limits will keep elected officials from becoming career politicians. Opponents contend that those positions should be limited by voters, not the Constitution.
I'm for term limits. Anything about I'm cool with
seen
that.
The bad, man. You ain't seen the good.
I know, so here's the thing with my opinion on term limits. It is challenging when it comes to going back to Cori Bush and even state representatives. Being able to really get involved, get in there and learn and build your way up to be able to even build your way up to what we call seniority within politics. It takes time. It does, right? And I think I don't know why. My issue is also, like, I understand the whole 2 years thing. Like, I think it should be 3 years, because 2 years is like you just getting in, getting your, you know. So
let me ask you this, Marco. Hold on. I'm cutting you off. Do you think that Cori Bush should have? I mean, do you think that the U.S. House for real?
Yes.
Are you saying that based on your experience from the past? With the past?
I'm saying I don't. When we think of people who literally, like any type of representatives that become local heroes, and no longer are adjusting or changing with the times, to me, it's probably. I think we should have term limits on Supreme Court judges. Like, I don't believe. I think there's a time. I think there's an expiration date on politicians. No matter how much I might like them, I might love them. Again, we're voting for 70-year-old white men right now for president. They can't get a job anywhere else in America.
They don't need one.
Maybe as a board of a company or something.
But
it's
to
ridiculous.
that point, though, they're both. One of them is going for a job he's never had before, so he technically still be eligible underneath the idea of term limit.
Right.
And one of them is subject to the final to the final term limit of what he has available.
Exactly. And then also, like, you got to be a certain age to run for president, but there's no cap on what, like, so that's just me. But I like term limits. I'm all for term limits. No matter which level.
I mean, it's a form of limited government. I mean, it's an essential form of limited government. So, I mean, I understand the desire there. Chris, what are your thoughts on this and what this could play out for in the, how would having term limits hurt or help Black people in the city of St. Louis?
I mean, for those seats, you mean for those current seats or just period?
Let's do both. You can start there and build to the bigger point.
I think that, I mean, you look at people like Cori Bush, Bruce Franks, Jamila Nasheed, you know, for people who have constantly fought for us, and they have shown us each year they're gonna continue to fight. They're gonna continue to get things done in their seat. I think for those people it's great. I think for the Clays of the world, it's bad. Like, we've seen some good and some bad. Marco want to laugh at that one, but I'm just keeping it real.
I'm agreeing with you, New.
I think you know, at a point, the Clay's name became a household name, just like any other family. But I think that to the degree where people subconsciously supported them, I mean, Lacey year after year, every 2 years, because that's who they know. So I think that I think it's a lose-lose. I think it's a catch-22 to the whole term limit situation, because in some terms, what are you doing? You are forcing people to look either further to what they're gonna do next, so they are voting and deal making on what that next seat that they can possibly run for. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember when I was in the House, and it was weird. My first term, people were already talking about like U.S. Senate. I mean not U.S. Senate, but state Senate. Like, man, you gonna run for? And I'm like, I just got here. Other folks were hearing the same thing, and it's like, man, we don't even know where the bathrooms are here in the Capitol, and y'all talking about us doing something. I'm like, no, but it put it in your head, like, hey, bro, in 8 years, you out of here. You either back home or you moving up. Which one? So it puts, I mean, not me, but I have watched folks battle with, man, if I do this is gonna help this person look good, and I may have to run against this person later on. Or this might come back and bite me when I'm running for my next seat. And I think you with term limits, you put politicians in certain situations that may not work in their favor.
And it sounds like to the point that you're making there, doesn't work in the people's favor either.
Nope. Yeah.
Because then they're not able to fully serve the best interests of the people that took them there, because you ask them to work against human nature, which is to also work in your own best interest too. Yeah. I mean, you have to have a certain level. You certainly should have a certain level of selflessness that's inherent in politics in a maybe a perfect world. But you know, it's just natural, you know, fight or flight to look out for yourself too. Yeah. You know, so that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one.
It is. And I'm also somebody who values leadership development. So, and real talk, like so we got to develop new leaders. Like, but that's just me though.
That's the thing though. Nobody should want to serve 20 years in one seat, 15 years in one seat. If you can't do what you set forth to do in a certain amount of time, I'm like, it's case in point. If I'm talking about economic development and creating jobs, when I first ran, 10 years later, ain't nothing built. We ain't created no jobs, but I'm still saying I'm fighting for this. No, come on, like.
And how hard is it to get incumbents out when they get cozy in those positions? It's hard. So I'm agreeing with you though. It is catch-22.
But I think
maybe the answer is more of a break even. Maybe this bill gets the spirit right, but the terms aren't right.
But Matt,
maybe two isn't the answer.
But Matt, I think that we are in a time now, looking at Corey and looking at other folks, your name don't matter no more. Your family name don't matter no more. Who your grandma is, your mama and your uncle, that don't matter no more. This is a different time. And I think that people are fed up. What?
I don't know about that one, because if we're going to use the example of Cori Bush, she did run for U.S. Senate. She did run for U.S. Congress not once but now twice. I mean, so it did still that name had to develop over time, and that took the backing of Bernie Sanders and several others, man, and basically in the South Side of St. Louis.
She took a giant out though.
I'm agreeing.
She took somebody who I ain't gonna lie. I never would have thought that she would have. I mean, and this is just me, and I'm keeping it real. I would have never thought that she would beat him.
Yeah.
That's just me, and I'm gonna keep it real and say that. Now, I voted for her. I was hoping you won. I was hoping that she won. I wanted anybody to win other than him.
Right. But like you said, like it would take 20 years, and if the people, that's my concern. If to a certain degree, I think it also goes back literally all the way to George Washington deciding not to become a king. Like the fact that we don't have term limits on the U.S. Congress, but yet they still serve like royalty. Like it's hard. Or let's go. This is why I also don't get. I don't like Trump in any shape, form, or fashion. I definitely have never voted for him. But he also saw how we went from how America was becoming an oligarchy. We went from a Bush to a Clinton to another Bush to, and if it wasn't for Obama, Hillary Clinton, which is what I call Clinton 2.0. And
if we're gonna do time machine, can I go back in time even further about how one of my favorite conspiracy theories is that if John Kennedy Jr. wouldn't have died, Obama's first term would have been his.
Yeah. Right. Again, dude, people in power don't want to get out of power.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's a transition of power, so, but it's challenging. I'm agreeing, especially when and I think that's also, and that's the thing, I think that's where it hurts when we do have candidates, when we do have politicians, like a Chris Carter, who is continuing to be involved with the people of the community. Like, I don't ever remember anybody here, or again, God rest his soul, Greg Carter. Like, I didn't know, no, people was like, no, don't run against Greg Carter, because he actually takes care of us. He takes care of the streets. He takes care of the neighborhood. No, we don't want to get rid of him. Why would we want to put a term limit on Greg Carter? Right, so I'm agreeing with you. It's tough, but Greg Carter still trained up Chris Carter.
So to get to the heart of where we're at with this amendment right now, and this is not an easy answer, and it's not easy just to say, click a box. But if you look at it on surface level about where we started when we started this conversation, yeah, it is easy to say, I don't like term limits or I like term limits, but it's deeper than that. There's a lot more to consider than just that. And that's all. We don't have to come to a conclusion or even an agreement, like when we don't get to either one of them, honestly, because people are going to make those on their own, but we presented the sides of where we're at. So let's get to probably what for the last one we want to hit here, let's get to probably what the most talked about one is, or at least the best promoted amendment that we have coming up here right now, and that is Amendment 3. So I'm going to give the ballot wording, and then I'm going to go into the summary, and then we can kind of put this one on the table and see where we go with it. So the ballot wording, this is what you will see again when you go into the vote, or when you did vote, this is what you saw. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to ban gifts from paid lobbyists to legislators and their employees, reduce legislative campaign contribution limits, change the redistricting process voters approved in 2018 by, number one, transferring responsibility for drawing state legislative districts from the nonpartisan state demographer to the governor-appointed bipartisan commissions, and number two, modifying and reordering the redistricting criteria. So I'm going to put that into layman's terms real quick, and then we'll talk about it. Basically, the summary of what that's saying is that this proposal is asking for voters to reverse the key parts of a clean Missouri redistricting overhaul they approved in 2018. So, 2 years ago almost. If passed, Amendment 3 would eliminate the nonpartisan state demographer used for redistricting that was approved in 2018. It will return the use of bipartisan commissions appointed by the governor to draw lines for the state House and Senate districts. It would also not use the total population count to determine the district, but only count eligible voters. It would also change the limit of lobbyist gifts from $5 to $0 and lower the campaign contribution limit for state Senate campaigns from $2,500 to $2,400. All right. So real quick, before we go into this, throw out that last part about lobbyist gifts and about state Senate campaigns. Throw that out. That matters, but throw that out. That is there as a hurdle and as a confusing piece to get over the other parts of it. And it's also strategically placed at the front of it before you get to the important part of that amendment. So the main part of this amendment that's being put forward is about redistricting, about shifting power. We're going to get into the terminology about what that means and everything here in a second. I'm going to give the supporter stance and the opponent stance and then turn it over to you two. So
hold on, before you say that, just remember, Secretary of State wrote this language.
Thank you very much. So supporters of Amendment 3 say that voters should get another chance to consider redistricting. They also say that bipartisan commissions would less likely be corrupted, reflect the views of different communities, and protect minorities. Opponents say that Amendment 3 threatens democracy because it would reverse the decision made by voters in 2018. A very important thing. They also say that Missouri would be the only state to discount children, immigrants, international students, and incarcerated citizens. They also contend that communities of color would be significantly underrepresented. I'm going to turn this over to you two right now that we have everything that's on the table, and I will come back in with the middle school version of politics and ask y'all some questions on the other side.
Marco, go ahead, man.
Yeah, so case in point, I know Alderman John Muhammad was not in favor of Clean Missouri back in 2018, but Amendment 3, he has verbally and publicly stated no. He's voting on Amendment 3 because of how one is trying to undo the vote of people, of the folks, of voters. Clean won overwhelmingly 60% in each state Senate district, and it will put the demographer. The demographer is the person who draws the lines for boundaries, and it would, instead of it being nonpartisan, and which people were concerned about in 2018. But to say, no, we're going to put it back to the governor, whoever the governor appoints to draw the lines, that means they will draw the lines in favor of them. I'm encouraging people to vote no on this. And not only that, I was somebody who was collecting signatures in 2017, 2018 to get it on the ballot and made sure it got across the finish line as well, with making phone calls, door knocking, putting stuff on, hanging on people's doors, and to see them come back. And to me, just to undo what voters asked to do, but then the citizen voting age population piece, again, has never been done in America. This is new. So we talk about how we have new first, like with the different women, black women winning, running. This is a new first, which is a new low. It's a new low. To say I'm not going to right now, the norm, which we've been doing, is we've been counting people who are 18 years and like everybody when you count the population. So whether it's no matter your age, we drawing the lines into the districts, population base. So whether it's 100,000 people, you get selected. Another 100,000, you get selected. But instead, they said, oh, we're going to draw the lines compared to just the age group. So it may be 100,000 people in one area, only 80,000 is over the age of 18. So that makes that little area smaller than it normally would be. But then you also miss out on funding and so many other things that's based off of everything as well. And because the next generation, the people who are 17 years and younger, are more black and brown, that also lets us. That means the new districts, if this passes, will be drawn most likely if, so again, this is a big if. If Parsons stays in, Parsons is a Republican. We've already heard that Parsons is not the same type of governor he was as a state legislator, when he was when he moved from the legislation branch to the executive branch, he's operating differently. And therefore the way he might choose somebody is to, hey, draw that more in favor of the Republican Party.
Yeah, no. He definitely,
that could be dangerous as well. So, and it might minimize the representation of Black leadership for sure as well.
Anytime when you're talking about redistricting in Missouri, that definitely should be number one for us to be looking at the execution of and maybe execution is the wrong word to use, but the execution of Black leadership at this point. I mean, we've seen this happen in the past where we just lose more and more Black leadership, and black heavily African American field wards, districts, or whatever you want to call it. We lose them at this point, and I think that voting on this is only the proper thing to do. This is trash. That's it.
Right.
I think that, it's not going to be a bipartisan nothing. It's going to be a partisan a commission that is selected. And if we have a Republican governor, we already know where this is going to go. To be honest, and this isn't disrespect to Nicole either. If she win, I don't think that this would be in our favor if she won either. So it's this is no. This is a big no.
And I think this is also one of those moral checks. Like, let's say we did have a bunch of Democrats, but we already know we've been discussing the Democrat Party don't always have the best interests of Black folks in mind.
Look, hold on, Marco. Look, the last time that we had to redistrict, sorry, Noop, I had to cut you off this.
You good, Noop?
They promised. I ain't gonna say promised, but they worked with us to ensure that people wouldn't be drawn into the same house districts. I ended up in the same house district with Jamila and Carla May. And I remember that phone call that I hated to make, but
wait, break that down. Nuke, break that down. Like, what does that mean? Like, when
y'all explain
when you get drawn to the same district,
and how that could be a byproduct of something like Amendment 3.
Well, so instead of drawing our lines east and west like they have had in the past, they drew them north and south, which drawing a house district north and south in St. Louis City can limit it could change a strong Black ward 50-50 quick, and we seen it. Not ward, but house district ward or whatever, and they always take into consideration that where you live as a state legislative. As a state legislator. And case in point, I was drawn out of a Senate district. And I'm not going to say that was for a certain reason, but my block was drawn out. The block where I lived, one block, was drawn out of a Senate district. Wow.
So basically, they will draw leadership out of being able to continue to serve in the area where they already voted, where they already been elected in.
And also, it sounds like, Chris, from the way you described that too, they will look to consolidate people who could be working against another idea, another area.
Yeah.
I recently watched.
Almost like making y'all have to compete then, like having like. Well,
yeah, exactly. It's cutting people off at the knees so they can't run any further. And I recently watched a documentary on Netflix on a program called Explained, which I loved. It talks about all sorts of different things like that, but it was explained. It was about politics and about voting system, and talked about how, by the numbers, that the Democratic Party, and I'm going to say this assumes that African American interests are only served by the Democratic Party. So I'll say that, but I will say this more or less as a point about the Republican Party. is that the only way that the Republican Party, in many regards, has been able to win the seats they have on a nationwide level, this is every state, has been by redistricting and by redlining and by making sure that the votes in the places they're at keep them in play, because by the numbers, they are a smaller party, but they are a more representative party, meaning that they go and vote more, meaning that they go and they participate more, so that by having districts, wards, however it is you define it, where you live, that are drawn more heavily in their favor, it allows for them to have a greater piece of political power than they would just by a popular vote. These are the things this is one of the things that's in play when you look at something like Amendment 3. And maybe the most stunning thing about it to me is, this is now correct. Now, this is the last thing that we'll hit on, and just correct me and give me a piece of knowledge here, because I'm sure it could help others, is that this is what stands out to me about an amendment that is a danger. Number one, it's a sandwich. It's got other stuff around it to make me look at that, as opposed to look at what the main piece in the middle of it is. So the meat of that amendment, or the main thing that we're going after, is hidden in between other things that distract me, which in this case would be the lobbyists and the campaign donations and things like that. They have nothing to do with what we're talking about with this. And then number two, it's trying to undo something that we just voted on, because it's another crack at trying to get this in a favorable light elsewhere. This is a bad egg to me. And it looked like that before I even completely was aware of where it was going to go. And unfortunately, we voted for things like this. The voters, the Real ID Act was packaged in the same way as this. And that's another thing that was meant to marginalize the vote and to make it extraordinarily more difficult for people to vote. I mean, for me, being a person that's pretty much straight down the middle, who has all these documents, who's of mind and young and can access these things and knows how to do it all, getting a Real ID took me, I had to literally read about it like 3 times to make sure I had everything right. It's a task. It is inequitable and not fair. And that's what it looks like when you tell people to say, we want for you to vote on how and where districts are drawn for voting, without knowing what that means to you.
Right. Well, no, I mean, Matt, this is politics 101 right here, man. This is basically how some politicians, some elected leaders get caught up in, but you supported this, but you know what I'm saying? And so there has been many cases where I have supported bills that has something that I care about it in it, that the main chunk is something that I fought for, but it's a slim piece of trash in there that taints the bill. So what do? Do you sacrifice what you fought for, your legislation, still, even when somebody attaches or amends some garbage to it? And this is politics. This is what we are faced with, or this is what these elected leaders are faced with time after time. So this is strictly a moral and character decision, or I mean, it's, you know, that you have to make at this point. Is this worth? Is one verse supporting bigger than the other? You know what I'm saying? And so,
yeah. And one of the,
this happen, like I said, this happen all the time, man.
Yeah, and one of the other challenges I think with this is that this actually kind of does boost the power, the political power of the rural areas versus the city areas. Like I often talk about, I'm not going to talk about it going into deep detail, but I talk about the Walmartization of America and how Walmart came in, knocked out a bunch of family businesses, and then when prisons came in, like, hey, y'all need some employers, you need employment. We'll bring a prison to you, Potosi, Missouri, and now the economy is a prison economy. And when they draw these boundary lines, they say, oh, give me those prisoners as well, because all those prisoners can't vote. We still count them as the citizens, as the population.
They should be voting.
They should be voting because they're getting counted as citizens. So Potosi, the elected leaders from Potosi has the same amount of clout and power responsibility as a Chris Carter from a St. Louis City district, because they got prisoners.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's things like that that when we have, unfortunately, overpacked jails in these areas, then they get more of a population, although they can't vote, right? So it's crazy. It's crazy. So I hope people vote no on it. It's usually on the back of your ballot. It's usually the last thing for St. Louis City, St. Louis County. To my understanding, it is the last thing on your ballot. Yep. When you got to flip it over. It's usually the last thing. So if you got to flip it over and go and mark no on that, and then go back to the president, please do that. But please
What's the
vote no.
percentage they needed this to pass? Is this
Majority?
This is a majority thing. Yeah, I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Something. It's going to be a thing. This is one of the times where it benefited me to go electronic because there was no way I could miss it. Yeah, I saw it was there and I could get straight through to it. So,
yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, hey, I'm going to thank y'all, man. I truly appreciate y'all for having me tonight. You know, I wanted to put the issues out there.
You on, man.
Man, I appreciate it. I truly
It's
do.
good,
I'm
man.
happy to have y'all here. I'm happy to have y'all part of the network, man. Y'all are doing great things. And I really wanted to, have the opportunity to lay these things out so that people understood it. These are things that people that listened to the first show that were aware of what we were doing were interested in having and to understand these ballots and be able to pass the message, if you will. So, thank y'all for having me. I'll tell everybody that's listening, please check out all the rest of the programs that we have here on the SOLC network. We've got a new episode of The Scenario, new episode of the Sports Scenario coming. We have a new episode of We Coming For You. Again, hey, all black business isn't clothes and food. There's a lot of other ways that you can support this as well. But again, thank you for being here, for y'all having me. Appreciate it. Everybody go vote before we get out of here. Marco, please tell people where they can find out about the information that you have about the mayors that are on the ballot. We can hear from these people, see them, and get an opportunity to learn that part of the ballot before everybody votes.
Oh yeah, so the St. Louis City judges. So I'm actually I'm creating a tiny URL right now as we speak, and that and that will be tinyurl.com STL City Judges. So you can go to there and check out the is a Zoom a recorded Zoom link. You can take a look and hear from the judges yourself.
And we'll be sharing that on the show, on the network page also as well for SOLC Network. So again, thank y'all for the time. Thank you for sticking around through both episodes that we put together here over the course of this conversation. And I hope we add something to your voting experience.
Matt, stay on for after, man. I got to ask you something.
I'm not going nowhere. It's good.
All right.
We good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're straight now. We're done.